Last question for you. We talked earlier this week about Brett Yormark getting a 3-year extension as the commissioner of the Big 12. I don't think there's any question. Like, dude has done an outstanding job, in my estimation, of keeping the conference together. A, just look at the Pac-12, right? But B, I think expanding in a way that makes sense, but not being over aggressive or desperate in how he's grown the conference. If you could project what's next, right? There's been rumors in the past couple of years about could Florida State and Clemson jump to the Big 12 and really make the Big 12 right there with the Big 10? You know, could there be an interest in getting some basketball schools, a UConn or even like a Gonzaga basketball only? Or, I immediately think let's go get Duke and North Carolina, that can be decent at football and good at basketball, right? What would you say, if you had to look into your crystal ball, is next for the Big 12 over the next 3 to 5 years?
So I think over the next 3, there's very little chance that there's much movement. I think that we're really looking at the 2030, 2031, 2032. And the reason for that is that's when a lot of these television contracts come open. When the Big 12 comes open, they're scheduled to expire in 2031, right? When the Big 10 and SEC also come up. And I think that the other thing too, that's kind of a little underrated in this process is Florida State and Clemson found a settlement with the ACC, but it will make it a little easier to buy out early of the contract than what it was before. Now, not easy, certainly. They will have to have a destination that makes sense, but I do think that it pulls up a little bit the deadline in exchange for the next 5 to 6 years maybe being a little bit smoother. So the biggest priority for Brett Yormark at this point is going to be, can we replicate some of what we were able to do from a contractual perspective and keep this conference together long term? Again, the contract doesn't come up until 2031, but you're going to be doing those negotiations, you'd imagine, by the end of his contract in 2030. And I think more than, I don't necessarily think there's going to be expansion or movement at the power conference level over the next couple of years. I think that everybody's going to kind of stay put. And the other thing too for the Big 12 is you're going to figure out who are our most valuable brands that are in this league right now. There has to be a little bit of a settling process before we can even start to evaluate too much. But the other piece that I do expect to see a little more of is I expect to see a much more of a focus on basketball. And what I mean by that is Brett Yormark has not been shy about the fact that he plans to try and sell the Big 12's basketball contracts for television potentially separately from the football contracts, because Big 12 basketball is a big deal both on the men's and women's side. There's upside there that he believes is not being taken advantage of. And last year we saw some of this come about because the Big 12 decided to move more of their product over to CBS Sports, right? They broadcast more games on CBS Sports Network nationally. They broadcast more games on CBS as well. And that's, I think, going to be a precursor. Now, the question becomes, whenever you do get in that situation of trying to sell the basketball product, then maybe a UConn conversation becomes kind of interesting, right? If you are trying to sell that separately. And by the way, I know that nobody's paying much attention to it, but Jim Moore is doing a good job out there at UConn on the football side as well. They only lost to power conference teams last year, and they dominated their group of 5 slate. So they are trying to elevate themselves to where they can at least be considered whenever the Big 12 comes back around as well. So I don't expect any real movement in the next 2 or 3 years, but I think that when we start getting closer to the contract being negotiated, again, Brett Yormark is a basketball guy by heart, right? He was in the NBA for a long time, and he's a marketing and entertainment guy. And I expect both of those factors to really come into play when it's ultimately time for these contracts to come up.
Fantastic stuff, Shehan. And, last question, kind of follow up to that, though. You talked about UConn. Anything to this idea of basketball-only participants? Could there be a Gonzaga or a Villanova or one of those really, really elite programs that's not in a major conference that might want to jump into the Big 12 as a basketball-only program?
I don't see it personally. So here's a couple pieces to it, right? One, for Villanova specifically, the Big East is going to be a great place to be a basketball school over the next couple of years, because while you, first of all, have the schedule and the branding and all that sort of stuff, you also have the fact that no school in that group is going to be wasting NIL money or rev share money rather on football. Right. So like you're going to see some of these schools push their budgets in a way that power conference schools just can't match because they can't allocate the amount of money that Big East schools are going to be able to start giving because they're going to be basketball only in many cases. So I think that that's one piece of it. Now, again, like UConn is going to be a very interesting situation for how they handle that big picture, but that's kind of a separate thing. I also think, too, that while there are some merits to the idea of one sport only membership, it creates a lot of complications in other places too, right? Like you, because again, then like what you have to organize with another conference. So what do you do with, if you have football? What do you do if you have baseball? What do you do? So I just don't think that there's a whole lot of attraction in the short term. Now, look, when we're looking 20 years down the road, maybe we'll just have sport-specific conferences, right? Like maybe that's something that makes more sense in the long-term future. But right now, I mean, again, there are conferences that are focused right now on individual sports, be it football, be it basketball, be it whatever else. And I think that ultimately, in this moment, it's just too complicated to try to figure out what to do with an entire athletic department when you're only wanted for one thing.